Now we turn to this hippocampus, another double asterisk. Okay, we talk about this. Okay, in a few of our previous lectures, and I'm sure a lot of people know, right? Yeah, like in today's tutorial, okay, we had a lot of people talking about hippocampus last week as well. So we all know that it is involving learning and memory. Okay, and in my opinion, it's possibly the most important subcortical region that I can think of, right? That is involving learning and memory. So we have all these major inputs. So from the entorhinal cortex, yeah, that's through the perforant pathway. I'm not so sure. Okay, you can see the entorhinal cortex, right? Yeah. So it's pretty much like a snake, right? Yeah, in a diagram, right? You guys can see it, right? Okay, that's part of my previous work, right? So I use fMRI to look at entorhinal cortex and hippocampus activations. Yeah. So the major output is through the fornix. So very important white matter tract. Okay, it's also called fimbria-fornix. Again, fimbria is really like the membrane. Yeah. Usually we call it the fimbria-fornix. Yeah. Okay, so it outputs to the entorhinal cortex, the EC, amygdala, other limbic regions like hypothalamus. Yeah. Okay, cortical regions, basal forebrain, prefrontal cortex, okay, usually, right? Okay, and then the fornix also sends inputs, right? It's not just an output area, it's also an input area, right? Sends inputs into hippocampus in the form of neurotransmitters, glutamate, for instance, and theta rhythms, right? And then LTP occurs at CA1, CA3, these are the subregions of our hippocampus. We have 4 subregions already. Okay, so how are they divided? Is like the exterior region is CA1, and then as we proceed upwards, okay, anterior and inwards, I would say, right? It goes to CA2, CA3, and then CA4 region is the one that's closest to the dentate gyrus. Yeah, yeah. So the dentate gyrus is really folded within, right? Actually, yeah, it borders CA1, 2, 3. And 4 actually. Yeah. Okay, so this is actually my paper. If you guys have the time to read it, okay, go and read it, all right? Then you guys will know what's a real review paper. Okay, not 2,000 words, but many times that amount, right? So I think this paper is about 14,000 words, if I'm not mistaken. It's about 20 over pages. Yeah, I think it's about 20 over pages if you look at the page count, right? So I just want to highlight, I talk about the fimbria-fornix. Why is it so important in memory formation, especially spatial memory, right? So we had a lot of work on this, and I think such kinds of work will get a Nobel Prize eventually. I mean, hopefully, right? One of the senior researchers get it. So now we look at this brain structures, circuits involving memory. So first of all, we need to remember this 2 concepts of Engram equipotentiality. Yeah. Very interesting ideas, right? Yeah. Before we had all these neuroimaging technologies, right? So engram is basically, saying that our physical representation of memory, okay, irrespective of where it is in our brain, is located across several regions of the cortex, right? So there's really no specific region devoted to memory representation, right? And then equipotentiality, I think, is a bit vague, and I think it doesn't really have a lot of substantial evidence. It says that all parts of the brain make equal contribution to learning and memory. So I don't think this is correct. Yeah. So yeah. So engram is actually the more promising concept. Yeah. Okay, we'll get to that later, right? And then Penfield actually proposed that stimulation. He showed that stimulation in parts of the temporal lobe during surgery for epilepsy resulted in experiential responses. Okay, even when the patient, okay, the epileptic person is not doing anything, right? Just do some stimulation, and then the person can experience something. Yeah. So, and that leads to this very famous case of HM, Henry Molaison. Okay. Now we can call him by his name because he passed away. Yeah, passed away so many years ago, like 2007, 2008. I'm not too sure. I think one of these years. Okay. And then later on, we're going to look at DNMS test. Oh, okay. So yeah, so this is interesting stuff. HM's medial temporal area. Note that it was surgically removed. Okay, it was not damaged. It was not lesioned. It was surgically removed. So that's why we use the word resection. All right. Okay, don't get this piece of information wrong. Right. So he had this large parts of his bilateral hippocampus, amygdala, entorhinal cortex. Okay, 3 key regions of the MTL removed. All right, and then consequently, what he report primarily is this anterograde amnesia. Okay, we just call it AA, right? Anterograde amnesia. And okay, so for events that happened very, very long ago, like during his childhood, he can still remember. But recent events, he will have difficulty, right? So, he does, he does experience retrograde amnesia, okay? But of course, I mean, the most prominent is always anterograde amnesia, right? So like, what's happening right in front of him. After he did, the next day he will forget, yeah. Okay, so this is an important post-mortem examination of his brain. A lot of people are involved. Like, this is a Nature paper, so go and look it up, right? Very, very famous paper. I think it's cited almost 300 times the last time I checked. So it was found that his left orbital frontal cortex is also damaged, right? This is from the bottom up, right? That's why it's the left part, okay? So from the bottom up, not from the top down, right? Yeah. Okay, everybody got it, right? The orientation, yeah. So the square is the left orbital frontal cortex, not the right, because we're looking at it from the bottom up, right? And then there's also like a significant amount of hippocampus that is not damaged, contrary to what is believed, right? It's kind of believed that almost all his hippocampus had been resected, but no, I mean there's still some tissue remaining. Yeah. Okay. So and then yeah, so that's the left orbital frontal cortex. Yeah. All right. So this mirror drawing task conducted by Brenda Milner. Yeah. Of course, she's not here anymore, but yeah, used to be very famous. Okay. So Brenda Milner is a very famous neuropsychologist here. And then, so basically, she tested HM on this mirror drawing task. You look at this star-shaped figure, and can you just trace over it? Just trace, okay? Trace the outline of the star, right? Look at the mirror image, do the tracing, and I think it's an insanely simple task, right? So, and I think it's just the simplicity of the task, right? That make the results so significant, right? So it showed that HM actually can do this thing, and then his memory deficits were declarative and not procedural in nature, right? So it's not really subconscious; it's really conscious in nature. In other words, yeah. Right. And now we turn to DNMS Task, right? So this is a bit hard to understand if you're unfamiliar with it. I've used it in my experiments, right? So my most recent paper published in August, right, involved this kind of task. Not on animals, okay, on humans, yeah. So basically it's like after a variable delay, right, you look at something, you need to find something, okay, under a certain object, under a certain box. And then first you found the food, right? You found the food in this case, right? Under this red box. Then later on, right, you cannot repeat the same behavior, right? If you repeat the same behavior, you'll not find the food, right? So in your mind, you have to be a bit strategic. You have to be flexible, right? You need to associate the food with a different container. Yeah, so in this case, it is this blue bowl, right? So the monkey has to grab hold of the blue bowl, right, to find the food, right? So this is how it's done, right? And usually there's always something like a practice session, a training session, and then ultimately it's this kind of testing session, right? So once you have these MTL lesions or damage, right, in a monkey or in humans, you couldn't associate the food with the new container,